What's cowin' bungas? It's me, MT, and welcome back to the Heavy Spoiler Show, y'all. And do you guys know what's awesome, righteous, bossa nova, Chevy Nova, and or excellent? The 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Literally my favorite movie when I was a child. Like, my God, that VHS tape was abused in my household. That tape did not stand a chance. Me and my brothers, all we did was just watch this damn movie to death, because good lord was this movie a masterclass in how you make a good mother freaking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film. And I am so excited to do this breakdown of this movie because I've always wanted to know exactly how this movie was even made. And let me tell you guys, there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into this masterpiece of a classic Turtles film. And when I say sweat, your boy means sweat, because Jesus Christ, were those boys sweating in them suits? So let's just go on ahead and pop open that sewer cap and just jump on into this thing. And hey, if you guys like what we do here on Heavy Spoilers, do not forget to leave a like on this video because it helps us out a lot, and maybe even think about subscribing if you aren't already. And if you've done both of those things already, like a good boy, then maybe even consider becoming a member of this channel for just 99 cents a month, because members get early access to all of our videos. So if you guys want to feel like a VIP for the low price of just 99 cents, then become a member right now. What are you waiting for? Give a buck if you give a fun about us. You guys thought I was going to say the F word, but I can't, because YouTube will get mad and take all of our money. Now, I know all the kids are talking about pandemics these days, but did you know what was even more viral than the COVID-19 virus? Turtle Mania? Like, if you were a kid from the years like 1989 to like 1993, your ass was probably obsessed with the Ninja Turtles. Like, Ninja Turtles was everywhere. Like, there were Ninja Turtles backpacks, lunch boxes, Halloween costumes, birthday parties, bar mitzvahs, you name it. The children could not get enough of these green pizza-loving teens. And it was all primarily due to how amazing this movie was. Yes, there was the 1987 cartoon that did a great deal to bring the Ninja Turtles to the public eye, but it is the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie that truly first gave human beings the deep desire to become a nunchuck-swinging, skateboarding turtle. When the movie came out on March 30th, 1990, it made over $25 million in its first weekend, making cinema history with the biggest opening weekend for an independent film. The movie would make $135 million in North America and $202 million worldwide, making it the highest grossing independent film at that time. And considering that this movie did all of this with a budget of $13.5 million, I'm sure you can see why 2 sequels were made after this movie. 2 terrible sequels. I mean, the second one's alright, but like, God, nowhere as good as this movie. Stephen Barron truly directed a banger, which actually shouldn't be a surprise, as Stephen Barron had a pretty damn dope reputation as a music video director, with him having directed iconic music videos like Africa by Toto, Take On Me by Aha, and Billie Jean by Michael Jackson. You know Billie Jean, she's not my lover, but she says I am the one. But that kid is not my son. I want a paternity test. If you've seen the ridiculous 1993 movie Coneheads, then you have seen yet another one of Stephen Barron's works as a director. He also did the 1996 Pinocchio movie, but we don't talk about that one. That's nightmare fuel. But Stephen Barron is not one to shy away from a little darkness. In fact, if it wasn't for director Stephen Barron, the 1990 Ninja Turtles film would not have been as dark as it ended up being, because Stephen Barron fought tooth and nail to keep the dark and mature aesthetic that came with the original Ninja Turtles comics by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. But anyways, when the movie opens to composer John Duprez's impeccable soundtrack, we of course get shots of the Ninja Turtles playground, New York City. Footage they didn't actually capture until after most of the principal photography was already finished, as most of this movie was actually shot in North Carolina, which was a fact that absolutely blew the mind of my inner child, who was convinced that this was all filmed in New York City. But in reality, most of it was filmed at North Carolina Film Studios, with the production only filming in New York in order to capture the street life and famous landmarks, like the Empire State Building, Times Square, and the Hudson River. A good amount of populated wide shots were filmed in New York City, including the opening sequence, as well as whenever Raphael Raphael walks through a crowded area. But because New York City was filled with so many damn people, North Carolina Film Studios was the best and cheapest way to film all the indoor and rooftop fight scenes as well as empty street scenes at night. But anyways, the beginning of the movie of course has April O'Neil on TV telling the audience about the chaos that the Foot Clan has been spreading across New York City. And while I personally love this intro because I'm biased, this movie was originally supposed to start completely differently, but due to the constraints of their budget, they had to film it the way that they did. But the original sequence was originally supposed to have the 4 shells of the turtles emerge from the sewers, which we saw a little bit of in one of the early trailers. And this was also going to be accompanied with a much more in-depth look at how the turtles navigated the underground world of New York City. But anyways, as April's report continues, we get this shot of a man holding a New York Post newspaper with the headline "City Crime Escalates" and the words "Chief of Police is concerned about recent crime wave" written below that. And under that, we can see the words "bearing witness to vision of crime." And the bottom corner of the newspaper teases another article that says "Cop kills cop by accident," which sounds very interesting. I would like to read that one because it definitely feels like a silent hint to how the Foot Clan has a hold on the New York City Police Department. Then after this, we are first introduced to the character of Danny Pennington as he hands off a stolen wallet to Shredder's right-hand man, Tatsu, while rocking one of his many Sid Vicious t-shirts, with Sid Vicious of course being the bassist of the Sex Pistols. And judging by Danny's wardrobe throughout this movie, this boy is a major fan of Sid Vicious, man. And then later on, the movie continues with us seeing the Foot Warehouse for the very first time, a warehouse that was actually built inside of an abandoned cement factory in North Carolina, a cement factory that would also be used in the Super Mario Bros. Movie in 1993 for Dino Hatton, and in 1994's The Crow when it was used as Top Dollar's nightclub. Later on at the end of the movie, one of Shredder's top thugs, played by a very young Sam Rockwell, tells the cops that this East warehouse is over on Lairdman Island, which is a reference to the Ninja Turtles creators Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, with the East in East Warehouse representing Eastman and Lairdman representing Peter Laird. Then inside this warehouse, we see Danny unboxing some stolen goods while eating some Burger King, right before we hear April O'Neil say, "Who you gonna call?" which is a clear reference to the Ghostbusters. After April wraps up her report, we see that she works at a news station called WTRL, with TRL likely being a nod to the word turtle. And on her way to her car, she runs into a rat that she would later tell Splinter that he was a hallucination of when she was freaking out when she first met the turtle family. But unfortunately, April would also run into some hoodlums that April could not face on her own. But luckily, that hero in a half-shell, Raphael, would throw one of his sai at a nearby light in order for the turtles to very conveniently kick all sorts of butt really fast in the dark, a move that Steve Barron was forced to make due to the time constraints that he had on the movie, as he only had 7 weeks to film this whole thing. But then after that, all the turtles except Raphael celebrate their first ever victory as the title rolls in. And yes, while it may look like all the turtles are jumping around and having a good time, the in-suit performers for the turtles were actually very much suffering, especially during those first few days of filming, because they had to get acclimated to just how heavy Jim Henson's incredibly designed turtle suits actually were. If you didn't already know, the turtle suits in this movie were actually designed by Muppet creator Jim Henson's Creature Workshop after 18 weeks of designing. And the reason why it took so damn long is because these suits were packed with over 70 pounds of technology on the inside, mainly in the shell and head areas of the suits, making the suits extremely difficult to walk in. So difficult, in fact, that these turtle actors were actually moving super slow in their performances. So slow, in fact, that the fight scenes were actually shot at 22 to 23 frames per second and then sped up to 24 frames per second to hide how slow these actors were moving under the weight of these suits. Inside of each of the turtle shells, a computer was shoved alongside the facial motors for the turtles' faces, with those computer and facial motor cables going from the shell all the way up to the animatronic machinery located in each of these turtle heads. But not only were these suits super big, they were also incredibly hot, dark, and scary to be in. Just listen to David Foreman, who was the in-suit actor for Leonardo.
Day one, we all learnt the lesson of how difficult these costumes were. The very opening scene, the tunnel scene, I remember we were all on our hands and knees, crying like babies. It was really tough. the weight of the shell with the batteries in, and then the weight of all the servos in the head, and the heat. It was just something it just took time to get used to and acclimatize to, and we all suffered. We all suffered really badly.
Foreman, alongside fellow in-suit turtle actors Michelin Sisti, who played Michaelangelo, Leif Tilden, who played Donatello, and Josh Pais, who played Raphael, all met together for the 30th anniversary of the movie to relive the horrors that they all experienced in those damn turtle suits. Kevin Clash, who was the voice and puppeteer for Master Splinter and famously the voice and puppeteer for Elmo on Sesame Street for a number of years, Brian Henson of the Creature Workshop, director Steve Barron, and screenwriter Bobby Herbeck all contributed to this super eye-opening conversation as well. A conversation that I highly recommend that you guys all watch at some point, because if it wasn't for this video, I wouldn't have learned that one of these in-suit turtle stuntmen freaked the hell out after being sealed in that suit for so long, because once they sealed you in, it was an absolute pain and a process to get out of, and this guy wanted to get out fast.
Did anybody have a panic attack and have to rip the head off? One of the stuntmen did.
Stunt guy,
I remember that.
He tore the skin off the head. He was in such a hurry to get it off.
Well, yeah, because you needed someone to open up the neck, and he just had a bit of a panic attack, and he just ripped the head right off, which we could all understand. But I remember the Chinese stunt coordinator was so mad at his stunt man. And we were like, no, it's totally understandable.
Shout out to the old Turtle Den on YouTube for uploading that footage. And also, fun fact, Josh Pais, the in-suit actor for Raphael, who also is the only in-suit turtle actor to provide the voice for their turtle, was very inconveniently claustrophobic. So every moment that this man was in that suit, he was suffering to the point where he would yell for them to take the suit off as soon as they yelled cut. Then after this, we of course see the turtles arrive in the turtle lair for the first time. A turtle lair that was actually built a couple of feet off of the ground, as the puppeteers needed a space in order to puppeteer Splinter, whose body was literally Kevin Clash's arm right up his ass. So you can't say that Kevin Clash didn't give a rat's ass about his job. And the facial animators for the turtles also needed that space as well. April O'Neil's apartment was also built 4 feet off the ground for these puppet masters too. And of course, after this, Splinter tries to get his sons to meditate, but they decide to dance to Tequila by the Champs. But instead of saying tequila, they say ninjutsu. But anyways, after Raph heads out to go sulk about losing his sai, we transition to this scene of Donatello riding his skateboard to go meet up with his bestie Michaelangelo, with a stunt actor who knew how to skateboard replacing Leif Tilden in this suit for those skateboarding shots. But what's hilarious about Michaelangelo waiting for this pizza delivery man is that he's technically waiting for himself, as that pizza delivery man is actually played by Michelin Sisti, the same in-suit actor for Michelangelo, with Michelangelo's voice being the voice of Robbie Wrist. Actor Corey Feldman would voice Donatello, Brian Tochi would voice Leonardo, and in-suit Raphael actor Josh Pais voicing Raphael. And while the cast we got was absolutely perfect, this cast and this movie as a whole could have looked a lot differently, as one of the first pitches that Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird received had the Ninja Turtles played by Sam Kinison, Bobcat Goldthwait, Billy Crystal, and Gallagher, with all of their skin painted green while having shells on their torsos. Basically like your Party City Ninja Turtles. And if you thought that was out there, another pitch for the Turtles movie involved using completely animated turtles in a live-action setting, very similar to what was found in the 1988 classic Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which honestly would have been kind of baller in my opinion, especially if they used the turtles from the 1987 cartoon, because those guys were absolutely ridiculous and super fun, and I love them so much. They're one of my favorite iterations of the Turtles. Then as the Turtles get ready to eat their pizza, Michaelangelo pretends to be in a Ginsu knife infomercial as Leonardo cuts up the pizza. Then the scene transitions to Raphael being a baby about his sai on the streets after walking by a movie theater advertising the 1986 film Critters, to which Raphael says, "Where do they come up with this stuff?" Which is ironic considering that he's in a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Apparently one of the ideas the filmmakers had for this moment was to replace Critters with Batman 89, with Raphael exiting that movie theater saying, "Cool car, stupid costume," as a dig to Batman. The following shots of Raphael walking down the streets streets of New York were of course filmed in New York, until the scene transitions to Raphael fighting those muggers in the park right before he meets Casey Jones for the first time, as that park was actually a physical set in North Carolina. And speaking of the big bad badass Casey Jones, he is of course played by the super talented Elias Koteas, and is hands down the greatest adaptation of Casey Jones to date. No other incarnation comes close to how cool Casey Jones is in this movie. This man has the sauce. And super random fact, I actually convinced my therapist to name their child after this character, and they did do that, which is probably my life's greatest achievement. Nothing will come close to that at all. I've reached my peak, and it's all downhill from here. But anyways, when Casey Jones and Raphael begin their fight, Raphael makes fun of Casey Jones's Jose Canseco bat, with Jose Canseco, of course, being a famous American baseball player who was playing for the Oakland A's during the time of shooting. And unfortunately, after Casey Jones plays Raphael in a rather elevating game of cricket, Raphael is of course sent flying into a nearby trash can in the park. But what most viewers might miss is what happens directly after Raphael frees himself from that trash can, because right before that shot ends, you can see Raphael grab his nose super briefly. This is actually because the stuntman inside of the Raphael suit actually broke their nose while landing inside of that trash can. The super heavy technology-filled turtle mask that they had to wear got absolutely crunched during that stunt, forcing the stunt actor to have to be replaced with one of the other stunt actors that they were using as a Foot Clan soldier. And it's the same Foot Clan soldier that Michaelangelo would have his nunchuck face-off with later on in the movie. But anyways, with both his pride and his human nose inside of him broken, Raphael attempts to chase Casey Jones down through the streets of New York City, accidentally running into this taxicab. But what a lot of people might miss is how the passenger in this taxicab is none other than the Raphael suit and voice actor Josh Pais, which is a little fun Easter egg there. Actually, a lot of the in-suit actors get additional cameos in this movie, as later on the movie would have Donatello's suit actor Leif Tilden play the foot soldier who slaps April O'Neil in the subway, and Leonardo suit actor David Foreman would play one of the Foot Clan's thugs behind Tatsu right before Tatsu faces off against Casey Jones. Then, a little later after this, April heads into the subway where she is confronted by the Foot Clan for her coverage on their movements and actions on TV, with Donatello actor Leif Tilden being masked up in Foot Clan garb to smack April in the face, like I mentioned before. But unfortunately, despite April giving her best effort to defend herself with Raphael's sai, she is pretty much immediately taken down by these violent shadow thugs. But little do they know, Raphael was hiding in the shadows to retrieve his lost sai and kick all sorts of Foot Clan butt before saving April and bringing her back to the turtle lair. But speaking of April O'Neil and violence, actress Judith Hoag was actually asked not to return for the TMNT sequels because of her many complaints about the levels of darkness and violence in the movie. But luckily, director Stephen Barron did not budge an inch when it came to his vision, though unfortunately Judith would kinda get her way with the sequels anyway due to the much brighter and lighter tone that they have in comparison to this dark and grimy take on the Turtles. Judith wasn't the only person involved with this film that wasn't a fan of the level of violence, as master puppeteer Jim Henson of the Creature Workshop was also very much against how his super high-tech turtle puppet costumes were being used in such a mature setting. If it wasn't for Jim Henson's personal relationship with director Steve Barron, Henson would have very likely pulled his involvement in the film entirely. Henson basically owed Steve Barron one for directing the first episode of the 1987 show The Storyteller for him. But unfortunately for Jim Henson, TMNT 1990 would be the last theatrical project that he would work on before his death on May 16th, 1990 due to sudden organ failure, which absolutely sucks. R.I.P. to the Muppet King for real. But anyways, fun fact, when Judith was cast in the role of April O'Neil, Judith was very much unfamiliar with the Ninja Turtles as a whole, because, you know, she was a grown-ass adult who did not consume children's comics. But luckily, her co-star on another film that she was working on at the time had her covered big time, as comedic legend Robin Williams was more than happy to give Judith the down low on all things Ninja Turtles by excitingly introducing Judith to his extensive comic book collection when both of them were filming the 1990 movie Cadillac Man, my favorite superhero movie of all time. Is that a Toyota? Is that a Honda? No, it's Cadillac Man! But anyways, when April wakes up after being assaulted by the Foot, she of course is introduced to the Turtles for the first time, very much mirroring April's introduction to the Turtles in issue number 2 of their original comic series. But instead of having her life threatened by the Foot Clan, April is actually running from Baxter Stockman's Mouser robots when she first runs into the Turtles and faints out of disbelief. But what is super comics accurate here is how Master Splinter tells April O'Neil the origin story of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles right after she wakes up from fainting. But an interesting detail about the way that this origin story was filmed is that the flashback footage was actually captured on Super 8 film, as director Steve Barron wanted to truly capture the essence of the viewer going backwards through time during this flashback. So I definitely thought that detail was a very nice touch. And actually, Steve Barron handed off directorial duties for this scene to Jim Henson's son, Brian Henson, as that scene featured puppet turtles and a puppet Splinter. But unfortunately for Master Splinter and the Turtles, a Foot Clan soldier would follow Raphael and April to the Turtle lair, causing Master Splinter to be kidnapped by the Foot Clan, as Michaelangelo was doing impressions of Sylvester Stallone's Rocky from Rocky and James Cagney's Matt Nolan from the 1932 film Taxi. As Raphael tries to ignore his brother's attempts to impress April with a cringy performance, he stares at April's fish tank, a fish tank that also includes a little toy turtle whose face kind of looks a lot like the faces of the Ninja Turtles from the 1987 cartoon. But anyways, after the Turtles show up at April's apartment following Splinter's disappearance, we get this shot of Police Chief Stearns looking over Danny Pennington's criminal records. And if we take a closer look at that paperwork, we can discover the date that this scene takes place in, as we can see that Danny was arrested on September 3rd, 1989 at 4:30 a.m. because he's a bad boy who don't need no stinking curfew. We can also see that Danny was born on May 24th, 1976, making his character 13 years old, just 2 years younger than the Ninja Turtles. The police chief then threatens Danny's father to pull April off of the story, which causes the Pennington men to show up at April's door. When they do, we can see that April O'Neil is a big fan of Elvis, as she owns an Elvis piggy bank next to her front door. But anyways, after this, Danny is chewed out by his dad for getting arrested, which causes Danny to run away from his father like Pinocchio did Geppetto and go do bad things with his friends over at Shredder's warehouse, a warehouse purposely modeled after Pleasure Island from Disney's Pinocchio movie, with the opening shots of the following scene showing smoking children playing pool much like Lampwick and Pinocchio did in that movie. And it seems like Shredder intentionally made his warehouse to be a hotspot for all things that parents in the 80s disapproved of, because on top of the gambling, cigars, and cigarettes, these kids can also be seen playing the super violent and controversial arcade game Narc as well, a game that parents at the time absolutely hated because of how bloody and mature it was. Then after we watch Tatsu beat up a child for no reason, the Foot assembles all of their misguided child soldiers together for a fun little rally, where we are finally introduced to the Shredder, physically played by actor James Saito, with David McCarran providing Shredder's voiceover. A similar thing was done with Tatsu's character, as Tatsu is voiced by Michael McConaughey, despite being physically acted by actor Toshishiro Obata. As Shredder is ordering his army to track down the Turtles, we can see a chained-up Splinter listening in on his speech. But one detail that I find super underrated about Splinter in this moment, and the Turtle costumes in general, is the wetness of Splinter's eye and body. Adding some moisture to these puppets was an excellent decision by the production, as it very much helped sell these mutant animals as real, living, and breathing beings, capable of sweating and crying. But anyways, after this, April talks about her mugging on TV while bashing the ineptitude of the NYPD as the Turtles watch on in her apartment. A bashing that would lead April O'Neil to getting fired from her reporter job, as the Foot burned her apartment to the ground a little later on. A bit after this, we can see Donnie and Michaelangelo watching the Hare and Tortoise episode of Aesop and Son, a short segment from the old Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoon. Then Raphael, frustrated at his group's lack of action to finding Splinter, takes off to the rooftops to blow off some steam and get a nice view of the city before he is attacked by those Foot Clan soldiers. And while that beautiful view of NYC was indeed filmed in New York City, the subsequent rooftop battle that followed was filmed in North Carolina, with the production spending a lot of time trying to match the look and feel of an actual New York City rooftop. And my god, did they do a great-ass job, because I would not have known that this was not in New York if I didn't do the research for this video. Like, the set designers truly went in on this one. But anyways, fortunately for Raphael and the Ninja Turtles, Casey Jones spotted his favorite green and red punching bag getting outmatched by a gang of foot soldiers, which causes the nutcase Casey Jones to go into full hero mode and help April, the Turtles, and an unconscious Raphael escape April's burning apartment. But anyways, after the gang escapes, Shredder slaps Splinter in the face out of frustration and gives Tatsu a major stare down of disappointment. A great shame that causes Tatsu to start attacking his own students, leading to a Foot Clan face-off between Tatsu and a soon-to-be brutally beaten boy, a misguided youth who was originally supposed to be immediately killed by Tatsu during this fight. However, because Golden Harvest thought that this kid getting beaten to death on camera was too graphic for the kiddos at home, they decided to add ADR in post-production to let audiences know that this guy was still very much alive and breathing. However, in the novelization of the TMNT film, this kid isn't so lucky and actually succumbs to his wounds fairly quickly. So the lesson of the day is, just do what LeVar Burton said in the 90s and pick up a damn book, why don't you? Because the book got the good stuff. But anyways, in order to hide from the Foot, the Turtle Gang is forced to hide out at the old O'Neill family farm, a farm that was actually modeled after Casey Jones' family farm in the original Mirage comics. And after everyone licks their wounds for a bit, Raphael finally awakens from getting his ass beat by all those foot soldiers, leading to Leonardo and Raphael making up after their earlier fight. And the beautiful sight of his brothers being softies causes Donatello to do a big hearty laugh. But when he does, you can actually see the mouth of the human actor inside of Donatello's mouth, creating a piece of nightmare fuel I never knew I never wanted to see. So thank you for that, movie. But then, after the scene transitions back to the Foot Clan moving some boxes of stolen stuff at Shredder's warehouse, in the bottom right corner of the frame here, we can see a box of Archie comics, with Archie Comics having produced the kid-friendly Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures comics from 1988 to about 95-96. Then, as we flip back to the Turtles on the O'Neill farm, we get this super emotionally impactful scene of the Turtles finally deciding to meditate like Splinter wanted them to at the start of the film, which causes them to feel their father's presence and bolster their resolve to return to New York City and get their father back. And when the group returns to the turtle lair, they find Danny hiding within one of their closets. But that's not even the most shocking thing that these turtles find, as a little later on, the turtles would find the absolute abomination that is moldy pizza inside of their home, courtesy of Danny not being able to finish the pizza himself. How rude! A true tragedy, and it's a tragedy that would cause Donnie and Mikey to hum the military tap song in memory of their fallen slices. And I especially love the joke that they put in of Casey Jones not knowing what the word claustrophobic means, as he clearly mistakens the word for homophobic, which he apparently is, which is not so great. But hey, it was 1989. But it's lucky that Casey Jones didn't like confined spaces, as his inability to both sleep in the lair and in the car would cause him to see Danny sneaking out of that turtle lair to go back to Shredder's warehouse, causing Jones to follow him. And when Danny gets back to the warehouse, Splinter tells Danny the story of the Foot and how the headband that Danny wears is the Foot's symbol, which is the Japanese character for Oni, or demon, implying that Shredder sees himself as the devil ruling an army of demon children. Then, after Casey confronts Danny, Casey learns from Danny that Splinter is about to be killed, which leads the both of them to trying to free him, only to be met by Tatsu and his band of loyal hoodlums. And like I mentioned before, the young goon on the left of the frame here is none other than Leonardo's suit actor David Foreman. But anyways, as the Turtles fight together on the streets of New York before their big fight with Shredder, Donnie and Mikey start trading puns with each other. And while it's kind of hard to see during this moment, you can actually sort of make out Ninja Turtles creator Kevin Eastman standing near the garbage truck that Casey would eventually use to squish the Shredder at the end of the film. Eastman was apparently going to have a much more substantial role in this scene, but his appearance was unfortunately regulated to a barely noticeable cameo, which I definitely think is a major bummer. And then of course the Turtles finally have their face-off against Oroku Saki on the rooftops of New York City, just like they did in their debut comic. And my god, does this soundtrack sell this incredibly intense face-off. It is literally my favorite track of this entire soundtrack. I truly love the fight music of this face-off. A face-off that would lead the Turtles to getting their Viridian asses kicked by the Demon King of the Foot Clan, because the Shredder, he ain't no slouch, man. He eats turtle soup for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and he would have finished them off too if it wasn't for the sudden appearance of Master Splinter, who reveals that it was him that gave Shredder his face scar, causing the Shredder to attack the greatest ninja rat of all time without thinking twice, like some type of aluminum dingus. What are you thinking, Shredder? What are you, stupid? But because Splinter has the biggest rat balls in the nation, he was able to counter Shredder's approach with Mikey's nunchucks, leading to Shredder falling off the roof to his apparent death, echoing Shredder's rooftop fall at the end of the first ever TMNT comic. And though Shredder's fall is very comics accurate to the end of that comic, it isn't actually Splinter that leads to that fall in the comics, but actually the greatest Ninja Turtle of them all, Donatello, who would use his bow staff to knock Shredder to the ground below. I'm gonna need everyone watching this video to put some respect on my dude Donatello's name, because the Ninja Turtles would not be anything without this smart purple bastard. But anyways, much like those original comics, this fall off the roof would not prove to be the end of the Shredder, as he would of course return in the much more ridiculous and lighthearted TMNT 2 Secret of the Ooze. Then the movie of course ends with the Splinter introducing the Turtles to the word cowabunga before playing the incredibly fire TURTLE power song by Partners in Crime, followed by 9.95 by Spunkadelic. Two bangers back to back, the perfect way to end the perfect Ninja Turtles film. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this breakdown of the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Who are your guys' favorite turtles? Let us know in the comment section below, and be sure to include why, because I need to know why you guys did not choose Donatello, because he's the best one of all. Like, are you kidding me? Like, the Turtles would not be able to do anything without Donnie. So I expect all of you to say Donatello in the comments, or else I will find you. That's not a threat, that's a promise. Just kidding. I'm much too lazy for that. But anyways, you can follow me at Mastertainment on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or wherever I am on the internet. But most importantly, do not forget to follow Heavy Spoilers here on YouTube. And when you do, make sure you hit the notification bell so that you guys can get notifications every time we upload a video. And hey, don't forget, for just 99 cents a month, you guys can all become members and get early access to all of our videos before everyone else. It's a really great deal, and you guys don't want to miss out on that. But like always, thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. I really appreciate it, and all of you very, very much. And I hope you guys have good days, and remember to be kind to each other, because kindness is the Cowabunga creed. I love you guys so much. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.